So in this video today, the acting Columbia University president has resigned. Protesters are ripping up their diplomas. Democrats are still calling for accountability, and illegal aliens are cashing in on their tax returns. Let's start with the protesters first.
Graduates of the School of International and Public Affairs chanted Free Palestine as they destroyed their sheepskins. It was Alumni Day on campus. The protests are in support of Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia grad student and protester now held by ICE agents. And they also object to the concessions made to curb protests on campus.
And we will continue to rage at this institution until Mahmoud Khalil is free. Until students are free to fight for Palestinian rights and liberation.
Just like Scott Jennings had stated about the party and where it is today, they have become the angry mob. You heard her. They're going to continue to rage against the university because the university just wants to get back to what its sole purpose is, which is to provide a quality education to people who are paying a lot of money. And so it's no shocker that we're continuing to see this type of behavior. Now, these students believe they're fighting for peace, but they're really pushing a radical anti-American ideology on these campuses. That's just the bottom line to it. Now, things are continuing to get worse for that university because now it's being reported that the interim president has resigned. Take a look.
On Friday night, Columbia's interim president, Katrina Armstrong, unexpectedly resigned, becoming the second leader at the Ivy League to quit since the protests began last spring. Former ABC News correspondent Claire Shipman will take over as president on an acting basis while the Board of Trustees searches for the 21st president. But we just heard from Elise Stefanik that she believes Shipman is out as well in the coming weeks. In the latest financial report from Columbia, the university says it received over $1.3 billion in federal funding for fiscal year 2024. That accounts for 20% of the operating revenue.
Okay, so if we heard this correctly, 1.3 billion is only 20% of their operating revenue, and they're crying over the 400 million that President Trump has pulled back. I mean, that's why you got to look at the numbers, because they tell an entirely different story. And now she just said that even the person who's supposed to replace the interim president, she's out as well. So this university has definitely seen better days, no question. But this is what happens when you allow people to dominate the campus and become radical, and you get away from what the whole purpose of the university is. Now, here is Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, what she had to say about this.
Are you expecting President Trump to pull more funding from these universities?
Well, the president has made it incredibly clear that he expects that students who are going to universities can go to a safe campus without discrimination. What we saw across Columbia and other universities was that the universities were not living up to that. I mean, when you see students barricaded in the library, people pounding on the glass saying death to USA, death to Israel. And I've talked to students at Columbia, Jewish students, who told me that they were afraid to go across campus, and a lot of the Jewish interaction on campus has been driven underground. And that's just not the way our education should be.
Now, let's not be naive here. We know protests are normal on college campuses, right? Free speech is still a real thing on college campuses. Where they crossed the line was when they were barricading students in buildings and preventing them from accessing parts of the university and moving freely. That's when you've crossed the line, right? And then if you're supporting terrorist groups openly and publicly, and you're calling for the end of Western civilization as you know it, I believe that's also crossing the line, even though it's free speech. But as a university, they don't have a right to go to that university. They can get kicked out. They can be expelled. And if you're here on a student visa, you can get deported. Now, what I find to be funny is that CNN cannot understand why the public isn't pushing back on President Trump.
That seems to be the trend here. There are a number of Trump administration deportation targets in a number of these universities for people who have voiced, who've been sided with these pro-Palestinian efforts. You can say that you could disagree with their position on this, but they have a First Amendment right to say what they want to say. But the administration is certainly digging in on all of this.
Oh, I think the administration, that burden of proof is on them. But like we haven't seen a public pushback, which is an interesting point to me. Like if this thing would have happened in 2017, 18, there would have been mass pushback that would have forced it. And so not only is the White House not necessarily reacting or calibrating the politicians, I wonder if there's going to be a public effort to force that level of transparency and clarity, because we know that's not coming from the White House themselves.
Yeah. So the public isn't going to push back because they're fed up with this nonsense too. I mean, imagine you're a parent, you're spending your hard-earned money to send your student to a university to get a quality education so they can better their lives. And they wake up one morning, they're going to class, and then they get stuck in a building because people want to protest. I mean, you're going to be upset, right? To the point where they had to cancel final exams, the school was shut down. I mean, and you're still having to pay. You didn't get a discount. You didn't get a refund on the times where the university wasn't operational or your child couldn't get the education. So again, there needs to be accountability here. And that's why they can't find the right president for the university, because one side is just too radical and the other side just wants to get back to where it should be, which is quality education.
We have seen 6 high-profile university presidents resign, 2 of which are from Columbia, because these university presidents have failed to show moral, strong leadership. And President Trump, as he campaigned on, is holding them accountable. The decision to withhold federal funding from Columbia, that's what the American people wanted. That is what they voted for, because these universities have failed to make sure that they are following their own rules. They have failed to protect Jewish students, and we will continue to highlight a spotlight.
All right, so just to be clear, tearing up diplomas and cheering for radicals isn't activism, people. It's anti-American. And yes, they have the right to free speech, and they can peacefully protest all they want, but what they can't do is disrupt people from getting a quality education, and that's what occurred. And so people should be held accountable. And the fact that those presidents came out and didn't even condemn the anti-Semitism on their campus and refused to classify it as hate speech just shows you how far gone academia really is. And they've gone all in on these progressive ideals, and it's backfiring, of course. Now, this takes us to our next story, which is where Democrats are crying out for accountability in regards to Pete Hegseth and the entire Signal Gate, but they continue to act like Afghanistan never happened. Let's take a look.
Look, there's no doubt that what happened at Abbey Gate was a tragedy, just like every loss of life over the last 20 years of the Afghanistan war. We can argue the merits of why we got into the war in Afghanistan. We can argue the merits of how we got out of the war in Afghanistan. But it's up to the Secretary of Defense in those moments to do everything he can to mitigate the risk that our troops face. We did that at Abbey Gate. It was a tremendously chaotic, difficult circumstance that was extremely dangerous for those men and women.
I want to get Mallory in. It is wild to me that we would rather live in the past and point blame at Democrats who are no longer in the White House. They are not the leaders in power right now. People want to know right now, what is this administration going to do? What is J.D. Vance going to do? Who in that Signal chat is going to step forward, say this was a mistake? You should not use apps that any of us can download on our phone to share sensitive information.
All right, let's just correct the record. If you do the actual research, number one, Joe Biden did not listen to the military leadership that told him not to withdraw in the way that he wanted to. Then he lies to the public talking about nobody ever warned him. And then 3, people on the ground that were stationed there kept telling the leadership, hey, we can't withdraw this way. We know there's an attack coming. We need to do this differently. And of course, nothing was changed in the planning. So we have the outcome that occurred, which is really tragic. And again, Gold Star families, have they ever seen an accountability over this issue? Absolutely not. So for Democrats to cry about accountability, they just don't have the moral high ground. And that's exactly what Shermichael Singleton pointed out.
I want to just go back down memory lane. I mean, Scott mentioned Afghanistan and how much of a debacle it was, but let's remind the viewers of the specifics of Afghanistan. 13 service members died. It was the deadliest attack, a single deadliest attack since 2011. A significant number of our troops were gravely wounded. And let's not forget those Gold Star families. They begged for accountability. Even many of them testified before Congress. Fire someone, demote someone. The administration did absolutely nothing. And even when Jake Sullivan told President Biden, I'm willing to resign, the president wouldn't accept the resignation. And so when Scott, when I, and other Republicans say we don't want to hear anything from Democrats, they have no moral standing to talk to Republicans about what we should do when they did absolutely nothing. When those Gold Star families, even to this day, Dana, still are begging for some type of answers for why the administration didn't protect their sons and daughters, and they want to lecture us
Chris,
on what we
what do you
did
say to
wrong. Give me a break.
Yeah, so of course, this is a point that Democrats refuse to acknowledge. They have a hard time accepting responsibility, and their base has a hard time demanding it. See, you can already see the difference between the left and the right. The right demands responsibility with what happened with Pete Hegseth. Polls show that they don't support it, that it was a mistake, and they don't want it to happen again. But at the same time, we're not demanding Pete Hegseth resign over it because it wasn't a catastrophic mistake. And furthermore, it doesn't really matter what I or you think. It's what the president thinks. And here's what he told Meet the Press host, Kristen Welker.
In an exclusive phone interview on Saturday, the president told me, quote, "I don't fire people because of fake news and because of witch hunts." Mr. Trump said he still has confidence in Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we would expect President Trump to say. He's not going to fire anybody over this, okay? It just is not catastrophic enough, all right? And I think everybody's entitled to make one mistake as long as lives were not lost, unlike Afghanistan. But Democrats, they can help themselves. They will go for the investigation, which is fine. I respect the investigation. Please uncover what needs to change about how we are communicating details like you saw in that chat group. But if they want to be distracted with this investigation and make their whole identity around it, I think Republicans will gladly encourage them to do so because we know, just like majority of Americans know, Democrats have no credibility as it pertains to morality.
Well, I think it's possible for two things to be true. One, it's possible to say this was a mistake, and it's a teachable moment, and I have no doubt they won't do it again. And it's also possible to look at if you're trying to assess what should we do about it. I hear Democrats arguing, well, we should fire Pete Hegseth, we should fire the National Security Advisor. The bar for firing people like this is really high from the last administration. When after the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was a disaster, people died, no accountability was meted out. After the drone strike that vaporized those poor kids and that family, no accountability. After the Secretary of Defense went AWOL, no accountability. So if you're arguing today that we should get rid of Pete Hegseth over a small mistake regarding communications, even while he was expertly executing this military operation against the Houthi rebels, which also the Biden administration didn't take up, I don't have a lot of time for that argument today, and neither does most Republicans.
And that's the very reason why Democrats and the media will continue to hold on to this as long as they possibly can. They will give zero attention to the Houthi attack and how successful it was and what it actually means in that region, especially in the future as far as safety, security goes. They won't acknowledge that whatsoever. And Congressman Lankford reminded Dana Bash of that point.
I do want to remind everybody, this is about the Houthis attacking the Americans. That's the story behind the story here, is that Houthis have attacked American ships 170 some odd times. So that for the Trump administration to push back on them is entirely appropriate thing to be able to do. And they are pushing back on them strong to be able to stop their attack on American warships.
Yeah, he's right. It is the story behind the story. And that's just the reality. And it's unfortunate. But again, when the administration makes a mistake like this, they have to deal with the consequences. And the consequences are that media and Democrats are going to hold on to this until their dying breath. And I think it only backfires for them because that means they're not focused on the right stuff. I mean, they're still trying to focus on things that are 80-20. This is not going to move the needle in elections. We know that. And ultimately, Pete Hegseth is not going to be fired. So they're basically fighting a losing battle. Now, just stay with me here because this next story, I think, is going to really leave you shocked, okay? It is now being reported that illegal aliens have been receiving tax returns in the amount of $14,000. Now, before I get to that clip, let me show you what Jasmine Crockett thinks about illegal aliens paying into the tax system. Watch.
To be clear, undocumented folk contribute approximately $100 billion in taxes. They pay into Social Security and they don't get to draw down on it. So stop, again, allowing them to divide us and to demonize them.
Okay, so let's just go with the logic from the Congresswoman, right? She claims that $100 billion is from illegal aliens, and they contribute to our tax revenue. So we should not be demonizing them. Now, let me just clarify something here. So you're asking me not to hold people accountable who cross the border illegally. Okay, got it. Now, even if we go with the $100 billion that they contribute, how much do American citizens have to pay because we've been subsidizing illegal migration? Well, according to a hearing that was held in Congress last year, it is reported, and this is a conservative number, that Americans now pay $150 billion annually due to illegal immigration. Now, things get worse because now there's this new bombshell story where illegal migrants are receiving $14,000 in tax returns. Now, it was Savannah Hernandez from Turning Point USA that posted this on social media. Let's take a look at that video.
We do this stuff like this, like at all the shelters and stuff. But like our company, this is why we try to help people by, providing them with refunds,
This is Savannah Hernandez in front of the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. Now, we wanted to come check in on the migrant crisis, and as we were walking around, we saw a Jackson Hewitt table out here with an employee who was handing out this flyer. Now, what this flyer says is working or not, file your taxes, and we can get the maximum refund for your family. And the paper says that if you have one child, you can get over $7,000 in a refund. And if you have up to 3 children, you can get over $14,000.
So this prompted Elon Musk to respond to this video. He said IRS refund fraud payments are one of several means used by the Democratic Party to attract and retain illegal immigrants in the USA. That's why they are so opposed to DOJ stopping this. The Democratic Party is aiding and abetting fraudulent government payments to illegals in order to establish a permanent one-party majority nationally, just like they did in California. The more you look into this, the crazier it gets. It's very true. California absolutely pays for illegal migrants and everything that they need to survive: food, healthcare, jobs, homes. I mean, they treat illegal migrants better than they treat their own veterans. I mean, that is a fact. And another user by the name of Susan Shelley said this: it is true that illegal immigrants can file tax returns to claim refundable tax credits. The IRS gives out ITIN, individual tax identification numbers, to people who, quote, do not have or are not eligible to get a social security number. Yeah, so that's just another part of the system that nobody wants to talk about. Clearly, we have been paying for this entire illegal migration that occurred over the last 4 years. But hey, Democrats want to cry about President Trump trying to clean it all up because it is their mess. And so what do you think about their mess in particular and how they refuse to acknowledge it? They don't want to talk about the Abbeygate situation where 13 service members lost their lives. They don't want to acknowledge the financial, even the safety concerns that have happened because of the illegal migration. They used to say the border was secure. Now they call it a crisis. And they also turn a blind eye to how students were prevented from accessing the expensive education that their parents have to pay for on these Ivy League campuses. So let me know what your overall thoughts are about this video in the comment section below. Now, yesterday, we talked about the heated election that is coming up on April 1st in Wisconsin in regards to the state Supreme Court. Elon Musk has issued a chilling warning that you have to hear, and overall what it means for future elections in our country. If you're interested in that video, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.